to the Zoom cloud. Welcome everyone to worship with Parkway United Church of Christ, where through God's Spirit, we seek to listen deeply, build community, and act for justice. On this second Sunday of Advent, we're so pleased to have you with us as we worship on this ground, well aware that this is ground stewarded by countless generations of the Catawba, Cherokee, Saponi peoples. And we live in an economy that has been built on inequity. So we worship longing for the courage to change that. Whoever you are, wherever you are along life's journey, you are welcome in this space with us for worship, reflection, and community. I'm going to begin with a prelude offered by Dan Knight, Lo, How a Rose Ever Blooming. Thank you, Dan, for that beautiful rendition of that gorgeous Advent hymn. On this second Sunday, we light the candle of peace. And so we call on the Sievers family to lead us in that candle lighting.
As we light this second Advent candle, we pause to reach for a sense of peace, which comes through your breath in us, giving us the capacity for noticing others' feelings and needs, and the capacity for change in nonviolent ways. to reach for a sense of peace, which comes through your breath in us, giving us the capacity for noticing others' feelings and needs, and the capacity for change in nonviolent ways.
As we hope for ways to contain the pandemic and restore the civic and economic life of our communities, God, in your mercy, allow us to see the light of the possible glinting at the horizon of our lives. Amen.
Thank you, Severs family. We move into our Advent song led by Tim Binkley, Watcher Tell Us of the Night.
Good morning. Karen will be joining me for this somewhat underused Advent hymn.
Watcher, tell us of the night, what its signs of promise are. Traveler, a wondrous sight, see that glowing evening star. Watcher, does its beauteous ray news of joy, hope, and care? Yes, it brings the day, promised day of Israel.
Watcher, tell us of the night, higher yet that star ascends, traveler, blessedness and light, peace and truth its course portends. Watcher, will its beams alone fill the spot that gave them birth? Traveler, I rejoice today, see it burst o'er all the earth.
Watcher, tell us of the night, for the morning sinks to dawn. Traveler, shadows take their flight, God and terror withdraw. Watcher, you may go your way, hasten to the quiet home. Traveler, I rejoice today, for Emmanuel has come. Oh, star wonder, star of night, guide us to that perfect light.
Amen. Thank you. We move to our celebrations and prayer concerns. We hold in prayer people in our community at Parkway, Robert R., Judy S., Francie D., for all who continue with anxiety about the end of unemployment payments, those facing eviction or foreclosure, those who are hungry, sick, lonely, depressed. We pray for our congregation of Parkway as we anticipate next Sunday's annual congregational meeting and have to make some really difficult decisions about what and how we will fund our ministry in 2021. I'm going to invite you to share your celebrations, your prayer concerns by unmuting or by sharing in the chat function.
This is Mary M. I tore a muscle in my right calf, so I'm hobbling around. I'm so fortunate to have Jim helping me.
Thank you, Mary.
I'm just hoping that what I'm working with the guy in for my Social Security and my Medicaid insurance forms, and I can go ahead and moving, because he said the Medicaid, if I could get that, would vastly improve my financial circumstances. And I have a phone appointment on the 9th at 2 p.m. this week. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Yes, Beth.
We ask for prayers for many of Craig's family. We have quite a bit of COVID sickness, but especially prayers for his oldest sister and brother-in-law. His oldest sister broke her leg, her femur, last Saturday. And they are like many other people in our healthcare system. On Friday, she was told at the hospital that she needed to get out because insurance was not going to pay anymore. Thank you.
I wanted to say thank you, Michael and Craig. I am eating right now the most delicious pastry I've ever eaten in my whole life. Thank you. And Leslie brought a pumpkin donut, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get fat having this disease. But I'm actually, it beats a hard-boiled egg. It's really good. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. I see John wanted to share.
Yeah, I'd like prayers again for my brother-in-law, Mauricio Ramirez. You may remember he was in the hospital for a long time, struggling with COVID, and he's been out. He's been out now for a few months, but he's continuing to have various physical problems related to COVID. It's really affected him long term.
Thank you, John. Others? Yes, Diane.
Prayers for family and friends in Salt Lake. Their mother and wife died of a debilitating stroke all of a sudden this week. She has been through 2 heart transplants and was waiting on a kidney transplant. She was 52 years old.
Jeez.
I would also like to give my appreciation to Michael and Craig for the devotional. I read that yesterday and I found it very moving and I appreciated it. Thank you.
That's something.
We've got prayers in the chat from Andrea S. for friend April, from Rebecca R. Lonely being back at school, would love texts during the day. From Margaret M. Please pray for 2-year-old Azariah with a skull infection and for a dear friend having medical procedure this week. From Carol P. My uncle died from COVID last week. Prayers for that entire family. From Diane J. Prayers for me because I have a medical procedure on Tuesday. From Amy Liz P. for my sister-in-law Charlotte and her partner who have COVID-19. Prayers for all college students in exams and transition back, for those who've been away from home, for peace and health and deep learning, both for the students and their families, from Tony V. Are there any others to share?
Prayers continued for our country, for a peaceful and effective transition, and for no violence in the streets.
Thank you, Cynthia.
I'd like to share that my daughter had surgery, neurosurgery on Friday, and she's at home and in recuperating. And the goal was to decrease her chronic pain, hopefully by 50%. And she is doing well today.
Thank you, Peggy. I'm going to invite you to join me moving into a time of centering and then a brief time of silence before we pray the prayer Jesus taught in the language and tradition of your choice. This time of centering is an adapted version of a resource offered by the Center for Action and Contemplation. I invite you to plant your feet firmly on the earth. Just sit up, hold back your shoulders and give your lungs their full capacity. Soften your gaze and just notice your breath moving in and back out, softly moving in and out. Friends in worship, say to yourself a truth. My deepest me is calm. My deepest me is whole. My deepest me is love. My deepest me is sacred. Our Father, Mother, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our sin as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I invite you to unmute and share a gesture, a greeting of peace with each other.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Hey, y'all.
Hello.
Peace be with you.
Peace, everyone.
Peace,
y'all.
Peace
With you.
to everyone.
Peace and joy to all.
Hey. Hi, Patty.
Okay.
Hi.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.
A mask at church.
The peace to each one of you, the peace of the blessed Spirit, the creative force, the Christ, with each of you. Amen. We are delighted to have Craig and Michael share with us our Advent song, Come You Long Expected Jesus. Thank you, Craig and Michael, and my apologies for some sound distortion consistently today. We call on Ann Herndon, Ann H, to share the reading of our scripture lesson today.
Our scripture is Isaiah 40, 1 through 11. This is from the Common English Bible. Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Speak compassionately to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her compulsory service has ended, that her penalty has been paid, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. A voice is crying out, clear the Lord's way in the desert. Make a level highway in the wilderness for our God.
Every valley will be raised up, and every mountain and hill will be flattened. Uneven ground will become level, and rough terrain a valley plain. The Lord's glory will appear, and all humanity will see it together. The Lord's mouth has commanded it. A voice was saying, "Call out." And another said, "What should I call out?" All flesh is grass. All its loyalty is like the flowers of the field. The grass dries up and the flower withers when the Lord's breath blows on it. Surely the people are grass. The grass dries up, the flower withers, but our God's word will exist forever. Go up on a high mountain, messenger Zion. Raise your voice and shout, messenger Jerusalem. Raise it, don't be afraid. Say to the cities of Judah, here is your God. Here is the Lord God, coming with strength, with a triumphant arm, bringing his reward with him and his payment before him. Like a shepherd, God will tend the flock. He will gather lambs in his arms and lift them onto his lap. He will gently guide the nursing ewes.
This is what the Spirit is saying to the churches. Thanks be to God. Thank you, Ann. The men's group met these couple days ago on Friday noon, and Larry Stallings had a great quotation which he shared with our group this week, attributed to Minion McLaughlin. The quotation is, "Hope is the feeling we have that the feeling we have isn't permanent." Hope is the feeling we have that the feeling we have isn't permanent. Can we imagine things will not always be the way that they are right now? Can we imagine that we will feel something different than the primary feeling we have today? Can we imagine something actually is going to change? Can we imagine we will, in the midst of a feeling of absence and silence of God, once again experience the intimacy, the palpable presence of the Holy One in our lives and in our community? Hope is the feeling that the feeling we have is not permanent. The well-known words of the season, "Comfort, comfort, ye my people," with the background soundtrack of so many different pieces of music, comes after a long and bitter silence in the book of Isaiah. There is a wide chasm between the last words in Isaiah 39 and the opening words of Isaiah 40. Some of you said last week, why are we in Advent reading a lament psalm? Well, that lament is represented in that gap in the prophet, that whole generation of silence in the covenantal relationship. And there's deep suspicion among the people of God that they will ever have a relationship with the holy again. So the prophet dares them to imagine something differently. The prophet calls each one of us to create pictures of that change with our very lives. Before we know there's any transformation, we have to imagine it, we have to model it, then we have to actually believe it's possible. Each of us is a prophet of imagination, upending what is by creating pictures of what could be, connected with mystery. So I want to suggest that there are 4 different movements in this passage that equip us today to be prophets of that kind of imagination. The first is, as you know, prepare the way. The prophet hears the call, prepare the way for our God. Well, I have to think it's a sort of tongue-in-cheek parody, this imagination of valleys being lifted up and hills and mountains being brought low. Typically, emperors have a stretch leveled out, prepared for them so that they can have this imperial processional to show the domination, not only of the people, but also of the landscape. It's hyperbole. Pilgrims would have never gone straight across the desert from Babylon back to Judah. It just wouldn't have been possible. But what it does, what these images do, they fire an imagination within us that possibly holiness is more powerful than all of the forces we contend with in this time. It might be the most profound to imagine these images as an interior Advent excavation project. In order for us to trust in the relationship being restored, that we can experience intimacy with holiness and each other again, is going to require some things. The valleys of cynicism within us and the heights of our hubris have to be gracefully confronted. Prepare the way, my people. Our highly activated nervous systems must be leveled out, and the depths of our numbness must be raised. The heights of our absorbed supremacy and the valleys of internalized oppression are exposed and drawn toward healing. Prepare the way. Our divides in culture and income and access, we must imagine, have to be brought to a smoother place. We are asked to believe that it is still possible. Prepare the way. Hope is the feeling we have that the feeling we have is not permanent. And maybe it won't happen quite as dramatically as the poets paint. We look for subtle changes in our interior landscape, maybe from here to here over the course of many months, or our social fabric. We keep on praying to prepare the way. The second movement of this prophecy is that of a hard-nosed dialogue, a hard-nosed reality check. Comfort is not mere solace. It is a radical care for broken spirits. And the prophet speaks for all of us. The prophet hears these voices from the heavenly council of what they are supposed to do. And the prophet responds for all of us saying, yeah, you're asking me to do this. And look around. Come on. All of our organizing projects, all of our best efforts, all of our great ideas, they are like dried grass. They're like pressed flowers in an album on a shelf. What is it all for? What do we have to hope for? Why should we believe that all of this effort is going to bring something new? And the whole voice of the heavenly council responds, yeah, you are absolutely right. There is so little hope in human progress as we've come to know it. But the word of mystery persists. Tend the imagination that God is still present among you. The great mystic, Meister Eckhart, wrote, there's a place in our soul that time and space or created thing cannot touch. There's a place in each of us where we can never be wounded, where there is a seamlessness, where there's tranquility. There's a place beneath the surface of all of this stuff we are encountering, below all of the hurricanes and all of the chop, a calm and compressed beauty that lasts. It makes love possible. It makes a revolution possible. It makes belief in the creating mystery possible. And from that place springs up a remarkable beauty in every single one of us to create something new. The eyes of the grocery store clerk, which convey a deep sense of warmth, even while she's probably thinking about her child at home, struggling with virtual learning, and while she stands at the cash register. The shaken yet resourceful woman who comes out of Forsyth County Small Claims Court this week with an eviction notice, with an eviction ruling, and yet says, how can I appeal? The kindergarten teacher who moves her students through the hallway, making a gentle game of keeping 6 feet apart. And in our congregational mix, the pumpkin pie or the pumpkin donut dropped off at the front stoop. Anna and Craig and Michael committing every day in this season to 5 minutes of holding one another in prayer at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Musicians outside the church building staying apart, but coming together in melody against the fading light and the silhouette of bare branches and falling leaves. The ordered symmetry of bags of holiday groceries lined up in the narthex. The slow evolving of a nativity scene on the Silas Creek embankment, the curious emoji in a text to help someone laugh just when they need it. People of God, the creases of your faces arc towards heaven. The slow shuffle of your feet point toward Bethlehem. The open palms of your hands are small stages for the dance of God every day. In every single longing and then falling and then getting back up again and trying to center, trying to find some hope, and then some succumbing to distraction, and then seeking again, and then yet again. This moment, this gentleness with what is in our bodies and beyond us, while also the draw of what could be. That is the amazing creativity of the word, birthing in our doubt and in our longing a belief that something else is possible. Even when we are all gone, the vapor trails of this beauty will still light up the imaginations of our grandchildren and their children's children. Hope is the feeling that the feeling we have isn't permanent. The third movement is the call to cry out, to stand at the highest perch of our consciousness and see. It may never be what we've asked for, but it will be enough to foster a movement of hope. There's a story from the time of the Great Depression set in New York on one of the coldest days of the year. Poor everywhere were teetering on the brink of starvation. And a case came before a city judge of a woman charged of stealing a loaf of bread. Her daughter is sick, her grandchildren starving. The shopkeeper from whom the loaf was stolen keeps pressing the charge, insisting on making an example of the woman so others won't do the same. And the judge sighs. He has no alternative. He says to the woman, I can't make exceptions. It's the law. The law is the law. I sentence you to a fine of $10, and if you can't pay it, you will have to spend 10 days in jail. Well, as you might imagine, the woman crumbles before the judge as he reaches into his pocket to pay off the $10 fine. He takes off his hat, he puts the $10 bill in it, and then he addresses the crowd gathered in the courtroom. I impose a fine of 50 cents on every person present in this courtroom for living in a community where a person has to steal a loaf of bread to save her grandchildren from starvation. Please now, Mr. Bailiff, collect the fines. The accused went home that day with $47.50 so that there was food in that household for a while. Sometimes the acts are so subtle, we're barely able to notice them, but it's up to us, prophets of an imagination, to witness to them, to speak them out, to cry from the humblest places, here is your God. Finally, in this fourth turn of this scripture, the prophet causes imagination in us to conjure new, fresh, wild images of the holy. In Isaiah, the prophet sees the majestic warrior, this image of a military general, transformed before their eyes into the one who carries lambs at the bosom, guides mother sheep home. Now that is quite an image. Julian of Norwich in the 14th century watched most all of her family and her friends die of the plague. And she too was on her deathbed. She was burning up with fever until they called for the priest to come to offer last rites. The cleric came and held the crucifix above her face, asking her to gaze on the suffering Christ on the cross, assuring her that in short order she would go to be directly with the Christ in heaven. But Julian, as she stared at the crucifix, realized that the room all around her began to fade and saw Jesus spring up off of the cross and begin to take her on a journey of visions, of deep, unconditional love flowing through everything in the universe. And against all odds, she recovered her health. She got out of bed and began to tell the people of the Middle Ages that Jesus was a mother, because only a mother could break herself open in such a way and pour out such love. We are not confined to the former ways of seeing or hearing or tasting or imagining God. Our imaginations draw us to bold freshness in finding the intimacy with the Holy One when we thought it was lost forever. So we prepare the way this Advent with our interior excavation work, so that we can trust something deep inside us can never be snuffed out, so that we can speak what is possible, what we witness as something dawning and new. And we imagine a God far greater than what we had imagined even just yesterday. Hope is the feeling we have that the feeling we have is not permanent. Thanks be to God. Amen. We pause for a moment to receive a brief interlude from Dan Knight. I ask each of you briefly, in a sentence, what encouragement do you seek to convey to yourself and others this week? What encouragement in the good news, in the comfort and good news, what encouragement do you seek to convey first to yourself and then to others this week?
I have immense gratitude. I've already gotten 4 calls this morning to see how I'm doing. And the church is, I have a beautiful family and friends. I'm very grateful. I'm just so grateful. I don't know how to say it.
Thank you, Judy.
I'm grateful for the depth of need in me and in all of us, the depth of need that almost forces us to reach out to know God more intimately. The gift inside the trauma is knowing God more deeply.
And for what you said, Craig, about the hope that what you're feeling isn't going to be forever. That's what I keep trying to remind myself sometimes. Different version of this too shall pass, kind of hang in there and relish the good times while they're there.
Mm. The sentiment, this too shall pass, has been seconded in the chat by Rebecca. Terry Nelson says she will seek to love friends and family. Lil S, keep hope and gratitude close to your heart and always keep moving forward, one step, one day. Grateful. Lisa W, good news.
I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt said, and this has always encouraged me, you can do the thing that you think you cannot do.
She said, you must do the thing you think you cannot do. You must do it.
Thank you.
I think the message is if we pay attention, we will see that it is all sacred.
Well, thank you all who have shared. We are also grateful for all of the ways that you support ministry between us, between Parkway and the wider church, Parkway and the interfaith movement for peace, justice, and mercy, with other nonprofits on the ground seeking transformation. We this month are receiving gifts of offering not only for the ministry of Parkway United Church of Christ, but also the United Church of Christ special offering, the Christmas Fund, to support ministerial professionals, church staff who are in crisis, and those who never received much of a pension and are struggling. I want to also have a word of liturgical privilege today. I have been deeply strengthened week by week on these Zoom virtual worship services by the fact that we've got people not only from Forsyth County, North Carolina, but in many different places, particularly, friends and family. A friend, Tony, from Cleveland, Ohio, my sister and her family in Brooklyn, my mother in Wisconsin, my brother in Michigan, and that has helped me enormously in this time to feel close while separate by virtue of virtual worship. And so I want to appeal to you. Who is it you could invite? Who in your life would we benefit from their presence on these calls? What gifts do they have to offer us to strengthen us on the journey? They needn't be in North Carolina. They can be anywhere, friends and family. I really urge you, if they don't have a place to be for centering and worship right now, I urge you to invite them to join us in this experience. It can strengthen us and maybe just strengthen them. Our announcements this week are many. I really encourage you to go to our announcements. Just a couple. What's urgent for you to know is members of our congregation is next Sunday, right after worship, we will have our virtual annual congregational meeting. We will seek to approve a proposed ministry plan, financial ministry plan for 2021. That process still continues this week. We've got a gap between what we had hoped to be able to have in terms of expenditures and what's actually come in as committed for pledges for 2021. So our finance committee, all of our committees, and our church council are prayerfully working on how to present you with a ministry plan that we can celebrate. Prior to worship next Sunday for our monthly Second Sunday experience at 9:15, join us as Cherie Fowler is going to help us in strategizing, seeing how to think big while getting it down to a manageable action addressing issues of injustice, particularly racial inequity. And then I encourage you to heed the invitation by Andrea Simons to send in hands, outlines of your hands with messages of hope and encouragement for her. 2 weeks from this afternoon, we will celebrate her ordination, and you will be able to join us virtually for that service. We keep breathing. We keep opening our hands. We seek, even when our hearts break, the awareness that they are breaking open so that new messages of good news and compassion can seep deeply in, that we can be prophets of a new imagination of how God is still intimate with us, still working this upending of suffering and injustice and loneliness. Go forth in a just peace this week, my dear friends. Amen.